The autumn wind is a pirate, blustering in from sea. With a rollicking song, he sweeps along, swaggering boisterously. His face is weather-beaten. He wears a hooded sash, with a silver hat about his head, and a bristling black mustache. He growls as he storms the country, a villain big and bold. And the trees all shake and quiver and quake as he robs them of their gold. The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won.
Warriors, cut from a different cloth. Renegades, with faces only a mother could love. The banner they fly, the skull and crossbones, is a clue to their personality. Show no mercy, take no prisoners. This is a team that revels in its ominous image. For over 40 years, the specter of silver and black has forged a reputation as gatekeepers of an evil empire, a realm where might makes right.
We didn't win every game. We didn't shut out everyone. We didn't stop everyone. But when you walked off the field, you knew you'd been in a game. You know, you didn't go dancing that night.
Born and bred by the Bay in Oakland, California, the Raiders play their own special brand of waterfront football. Stevedores, muscle men, who club their opponents until they break their spirits. When the Raiders rock, heads roll. While the defense struck with the hammer of Thor, the offense flew on the wings of Mercury. And a succession of rough and tumble running backs effectively counterpointed their ambitious passing philosophy. Their trademarks are daring, dazzle, and a tradition built on the big play. But it's their mystique, characterized by a rugged individualism that makes them special. But above all, they've done one thing very well.
Just win, baby.
Snap, spotted, it's kicked, that's got a chance, that is good, it's good, holy Toledo!
Old man Willie, he's going all the way, touchdown Raiders!
The Raiders have won the AFC West again.
Before the Raiders began their monumental rise to become one of the most storied franchises in all of sports, their biggest challenge was survival in a city that was just beginning to make its mark.
A city that's the center of industry, commerce, and recreation for more than 1.5 million people. That city, Oakland, California. Half surrounded by one of the world's great bays, the area is undergoing vast changes and improvements. As the final team selected for the original American Football League, the Raiders were a poor stepchild from the start. With no home to call their own, they were forced to play across the bay in San Francisco, sharing Candlestick Park and Kezar Stadium. While crowds flocked to see the 49ers of the established NFL, few lined up to see the upstart Raiders.
Short on talent and fans, the Raiders lost games and money at an alarming rate. On the verge of bankruptcy, original owner Wayne Valley went to his fellow owners for help. $400,000 from Buffalo Bills owner Ralph Wilson not only saved the Raiders, but the AFL as well, which couldn't survive with just 7 teams. So the Raiders fled the playing fields in San Francisco when the Oakland City Fathers agreed to provide a temporary no-frills facility.
Frank Ewell Field up in Oakland, I mean, come on, that thing, you know, if they ever had the wave in those days, that whole thing would have come down. I swear to God, it's the worst looking mess I ever saw. Played in an erector set. It was terrible.
Frank Ewell Field was named after an undertaker in Oakland. And I hope that it is true because it adds to everything else that was going on at that time in the American Football League. Because everybody was trying to bury them, there's no question about it. They just kept coming back to life.
Despite the fanfare, the Raiders' first season in Oakland yielded just 1 win. They were the worst team in football, a herd of scattered failures, but with a solid, if limited, core of players. But everything changed when the Raiders hired a 33-year-old assistant from San Diego. Recognized as the brightest young mind in the game, Al Davis took this shaky foundation of a team and constructed an immediate winner. From 1-13 the year before to 10-4.
I had a dream that someday I would build the finest organization in professional sports. I had the inspiration of 2 great organizations when I was growing up, the New York Yankees at that time and the Brooklyn Dodgers. We had come from Massachusetts when I was very young to Brooklyn where I was brought up, and the Yankees to me personified the size of the players, power, the home run, and intimidation and fear. They were very important characteristics to me of what I thought a great organization and a great team should have. The Dodgers were totally different in my mind. They represented speed and the ability to take chances and pioneer in professional sports. And I always thought that someone intelligent could take all the qualities, the great qualities of both, and put them together and use them.
With 2 great winners to guide him, Davis set out to redefine professional football.
I had certain philosophies of my own, and that was number 1, what I call the vertical game. We were going to stretch the field vertically. When we came out of the huddle, we weren't looking for first downs. We didn't want to move the chains. We wanted touchdowns. We wanted the big play, the quick strike. They tell quarterbacks, take what they give you. That all sounds good to everybody, but I always went the other way. We're going to take what we want. It's number 1 to say you want to do that. It's number 2 to say that you have the players to do it, but it's number 3 to do it. To do it on first down of any football game for that defense that you're playing against. To know that the Raiders are coming at you, they're coming at you on top, and they've got the speed to do it, and they will do it. That was Raider football.
What Davis designed was not a reckless use of the bomb, but a controlled, disciplined means of getting the long ball into the end zone. Al Davis provided an environment for both success and brotherhood. He targeted ill-used players from other teams, overlooked college players, misfits with something to prove, and made them his own.
You were a team, but you were allowed to be different people. All I really wanted you to do was play football.
Just a diverse group of guys, but once we came together, serious business, we were going to play that game and win it.
The defensive theory evolved early on in the 60s to, number one, pressure. Put pressure on the pocket, put pressure on the quarterback, diversification of defense, and the utilization of your corners in a bump and run principle. And the idea is to disrupt the offense, disrupt the flow of the offense, disrupt the continuity.
By the mid-60s, the Raiders in Oakland were committed to one another, and together they braced themselves for a long and wild ride.
We did not come to Oakland and the East Bay for the sake of a job. We came because we believe in the future of this team and the future of this area. My enthusiasm has not diminished for the job in the years to come. And I hope your enthusiasm will continue. And come what may, be proud too that you are a vital part of the progress of this football team.
As the Raiders prepared to move into their new big league facility, Al Davis took a leave of absence to become AFL commissioner. While he became the driving force behind the merger of the two leagues, his Raiders were awfully close to being a great team. They lacked a few key ingredients, so new head coach John Roush went out and got them. In their search for these special players, the Raiders operated as lone wolves, ignoring talent pools and scouting combines. They traded for tight end Hewritt Dixon and converted him to a pass-catching fullback. They drafted Gene Upshaw, who was a fixture on the offensive line for 15 years. And they traded for cornerback Willie Brown. Unhappy in Denver, number 24 became one of 16 Raiders in the Hall of Fame. But the most critical addition lined up behind center. Looking for the ultimate long ball threat, the Raiders traded for a backup quarterback from Buffalo. And Daryle Lamonica became the Mad Bomber, and the perfect fit for the Raiders' stretch the field philosophy. A favorite target was Warren Wells. Released by two teams, Wells averaged over 26 yards per catch in 1969, the highest in league history. A possession receiver later in his career, draftee Fred Biletnikoff was yet another vertical weapon in the mid-60s. Running back Billy Cannon arrived from Houston and was converted to a deep threat at tight end. With a mauling, brawling defense on the attack, the Raiders posted a 13-1 record, their first of 4 straight division titles, and reached the AFL Championship game in 1967, where they destroyed the Houston Oilers. Tight end turned fullback Hewritt Dixon ran for 144 yards and helped earn the Raiders a trip to their first of 5 Super Bowls. Just 4 seasons since being the worst team in football, the Raiders had earned a command performance on the sport's biggest stage. Their opponents were the Green Bay Packers, considered one of the greatest teams of all time. This was a team that had won 5 NFL championships in 7 years.
They want the football. We will defend this goal here. Okay. Good rush in there now.
The Raiders matched the powerful Packers physically, and Daryle Lamonica found Bill Miller for a pair of touchdowns. But their lack of big game experience failed them in the end. The game was not what it has become today, but it provided an indication of just how far the Raiders had come and how far they had to go.
They didn't give our offense room to do anything, and I think it's just their fine defense. And, I wish we could be as good in the future. I hope we can be as good in the future as they are.
That day would come, but not before the Raiders would play a part in some of the most improbable, implausible, impossible finishes in NFL history. In 1968, in an otherwise routine game against the New York Jets, not one, but 2 Raiders touchdowns were called back by penalties. If either touchdown had counted, the Raiders would have been ahead in the game, and nobody in the television audience would have cared about missing the end, and this game would have been forgotten. Instead, what happened next made it one of the most talked about games in sports history. With the Jets ahead by 3 points, New York kicked off to Charlie Smith, who couldn't make it out of bounds to stop the clock. With no timeouts left, Smith picked up another 20 yards on a screen pass. Then, at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, NBC pulled the plug on the uncompleted game in favor of a regularly scheduled children's show called Heidi. Only the sellout crowd, the radio, and West Coast television audience were aware of what followed. Millions of television viewers never saw the rookie named Smith become a hero in his own hometown. There was more to come. With 42 seconds left, the Raiders kicked off, and the Jets added laughter to legend when they fumbled their final chance to win. "14 points in 8 seconds.
NBC apologized for the error, but by then Oakland had scored 2 touchdowns in the last minute at beaten New York. The game was over. The fans who missed it could not be consoled.
The Jets and Raiders would meet again that year in the league championship game. With New York ahead by 4 points in the fourth quarter, a bomb from LaMonica to Wells, plus a roughing penalty, moved the ball to the New York 12 with 2 minutes left. But this time, a Raider error cost them the game. The Jets, not the Raiders, were on their way to Miami and Super Bowl III. The next season, the Raiders began a new era under a new man.
Hey, throw the damn flag!
33-year-old John Madden became football's youngest head coach and began a reign that produced 100 victories in 10 seasons. Ironically, the man most responsible for that season's success was 10 years older than his coach.
And here comes George Blanda onto the field.
Ageless wonder George Blanda decided the outcome of 5 straight games. A sensational run of clutch performances that earned him Player of the Year honors.
And with 8 seconds, George Blanda is handed the incredibly difficult job of about a 47 or 48-yard field goal. And here's your ball game. 17-14 Kansas City. LaMonica will spot at the 48. It's snapped, it's down, it's kicked. It is good! It's good! It is good!
George Blanda has just been elected king of the world.
2 years later, on the verge of a championship season, the Raiders broke open a tight defensive battle to take a 1-point lead in Pittsburgh.
Steps away from the rush. He's going to run up the left side. 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown! Touchdown, Oakland Raiders! I'm sorry, I've lost my voice.
In an impossible 4th down situation, the Steelers came up with a play that was miraculous, freakish, controversial, and by some counts, illegal. It became known as the Immaculate Reception and led to the most bitter defeat in Raiders history. As suddenly as the Raiders had forged ahead, their season had ended. Despite the heartbreaking playoff losses, the bond between the people of Oakland and their team was never stronger. And the lovable Raider Renegades had their fans' unshakable support when they faced the defending Super Bowl champion Dolphins. The Raiders led 21-19 in the final minutes before Miami jumped ahead with 2 minutes to play. John Madden and quarterback Kenny Stabler plotted a 7-play, 60-yard drive that brought the ball to the Dolphins' 8-yard line.
It was maybe the greatest football game I've ever seen. It was just incredible.
In just 14 seasons, the Raiders played in countless great games, with great players making unforgettable plays. Only one thing eluded them: a world championship. Disappointment and defeat did more than test the Raiders' character. It served to strengthen their resolve. Through high times and hard times, with patience and an unyielding will to win, their time would come.
You really couldn't label us or simplify us because you said they had a bunch of big tough guys and we had little Cliff Branch, who was scoring touchdowns, or Ken Stabler throwing, Fred Blitnikoff, Willie Brown, one of the best corners that ever played. Heck, we drafted a punter, #1 one year, Ray Guy. I mean, if you have a good team, you're going to be complex. And you can never simplify or label anything that's complex.
Still, for all their complexity, achievement was ever constant. George Blanda became the NFL's all-time leading scorer in 1975 as the Raiders soared to the AFC West title for the 8th time in 9 years. Hall of Famers Art Shell and Gene Upshaw anchored an offensive line that was virtually impenetrable. But then they had plenty of inspiration thanks to their charismatic quarterback, Ken Stabler.
One of the unique things about Ken Stabler is he walks in the huddle, your 6'3" lineman becomes 6'6".
To be in the huddle with him is so different than anything else you've ever seen.
Okay, in the huddle today, we got the snake at quarterback, the kid from Alabama.
He's full right, 99 in, 2 swing on 1.
He had a command presence that every great quarterback has, where you're going to lay your life down because this is our guy, this is our leader.
We had a great confidence in our team. I think we all had great confidence in each other, knew that we had the abilities and had all the tools. John basically pitched me the playbook and said, go win. Do whatever in the hell you want to do, just go win. And we did. And that was his coaching style, and we all respected that in him.
I only had 3 rules, and to be on time, like we're going to have a meeting or everyone's on time and do that, and to pay attention, listen when you're speaking, because if you're going to teach, you have to listen, and then play like hell when I tell you to. Play like hell on Sunday.
They played as if propelled by forces beyond men's control, at times seemingly infernal. That the Raiders were a terror was beyond question, but they still had to get beyond the Steelers.
75, we go to Pittsburgh for the championship game, and it is freezing.
I knew that we were in trouble when I went out on the field on Sunday morning before the game, and I saw that the sidelines were ice.
Our game was the throw-in, the deep ball. So with that ice, we had to move those receivers in, and that narrowed the field for us. I'll never forget Pete Rozelle said to me, well, it's the same for both sides. I said, damn it, Pete, you don't even understand what you're talking about. It's not the same for both sides.
Deprived of their deep threat, Oakland's quest for the Super Bowl ended in the snow and ice. just 15 yards away from Pittsburgh's goal line. But 2 near misses against the Steelers gave the 76 Raiders the resolve to vanquish their nemesis.
The 2 Super Bowls that they went to were through Oakland, through us. They beat us both times. We just couldn't take it anymore. Opening day, it was 100 degrees, the Santa Ana winds were blowing, and here comes the Steelers all cocky. It was like we were going to leave it out there. If we don't win that day, forget the season. We put it on the line. We talked about it. Madden pulled out all the stoppers, and we just went after it. We scored 17 points in 2 minutes or 21 points in 2 minutes to beat them, and we never looked back the rest of the season.
Oakland's quick scores gave the Raiders the win, but it was their defense that left the lasting impression. Oakland annihilated Pittsburgh, physically abusing the world champs. They weren't just unmerciful, they were unrepentant.
I mean, they want to say the Raiders are dirty. Yeah, we're dirty. Yeah. What are you going to do about it?
Dr. Death, the Assassin, the Stork. Their names spoke volumes, and their hits linger still. They were brazen, bellicose, and belligerent, and they didn't care who knew it.
It was just kind of a feeling that once you became a Raider, you were going to go out and you were going to destroy people, you were going to hit them, you were going to intimidate them, and like we used to say in practice, first one cries a sissy.
We'd go into cities, and actually these teams would be beat long before we got there. They would absolutely fumble. They would let us make interceptions. Quarterbacks used to throw me the ball. I swear to God, and it was in their mind, let's just get rid of this thing. Give it to the Raiders. Get me off the field.
You couldn't blame teams for being intimidated. The 76 Raiders were terrifying. They lost just a single game en route to a 5th straight division title. Though a second loss would have actually eased their path through the playoffs, the Raiders balked at taking the easy way. They wanted the Steelers.
Cincinnati, if they beat us, they were in the playoffs and would knock out Pittsburgh. If we won, then that would knock out Cincinnati and put in Pittsburgh.
I can remember plainly the news media coming out with, yeah, we're going to lose because we don't want to meet the Steelers. Well, we weren't that type of a team. We wanted the best team on the field to play against in order to get to the championship and the Super Bowl.
Of all the games I ever coached in my life, I was the most proud of that game and that team. I mean, we not only beat Cincinnati, we beat them big.
In the first round of the AFC playoffs, Oakland avenged its only loss of the regular season by beating the Patriots with a gritty last-minute comeback.
Here's second down. Stabler rolling to the left. He's going to go. Wins it in. Kenny Stabler. Touchdown, Oakland.
The win not only earned Oakland its 4th straight appearance in the AFC Championship game, it gave them another shot at the Steelers. The grudge match quickly became a mismatch.
Stabler back. Here comes a blitz. He throws. Touchdown, Raiders.
As they had in the season opener, Oakland manhandled Pittsburgh. The mauling was so complete that Chuck Noll, the Steelers' head coach, tried to sue the Raiders for their aggressive play.
And the beauty of that game was after the end of the season, when Chuck Noll accuses the Oakland Raiders of brutality in the league or something, that made us all go to court over in San Francisco and testify that we were too rough for the Steelers. It was such a joke. And I just go in there and I show him this ring, and I show him the score on the side of this ring. Al Davis put 24-7. Raiders 24, Steelers 7 on the ring. That's how much we hated the Steelers.
The Super Bowl really exists for the Oakland Raiders. All along they've been thinking it was somebody's crazy illusion. The Oakland Raiders have made it to the Super Bowl.
Having finally reached the Super Bowl, Oakland played as if the title were its birthright.
Stabler back to pass, a quick throw into the end zone. Casper, touchdown Raiders! Yasha Heifetz never played a violin with more dexterity than Kenny Stabler is playing the Minnesota Viking defense this afternoon in the Rose Bowl Stadium at Pasadena.
While the offense played in symphonic harmony, the defense simply tuned up the Vikings.
We wanted that one Super Bowl. We were committed. We were committed to winning the Super Bowl, not just getting there, but to winning it.
And he looks and throws. Intercepted by the Oakland Raiders. Willie Brown at the 30, 40, 50. Old man Willie. Touchdown Raiders.
It shows that if you stick with anything and you believe in it strong enough with conviction and commitment, and you work toward that, that you can accomplish it. And we are the epitome of what hard work is about and what commitment and conviction and what commitment to excellence was about. That 76 team, if you wanted to kind of put it in a capsule, that's the way I would capsulize that team.
In the end, there can be no greater honor for that team than simply calling them champions at last. The flag of piracy was joined by a World Championship banner for the 1977 season. But while the Raiders had a new title, it was the familiar duo of Cliff Branch and Hall of Famer Fred Biletnikoff that kept the Raiders' attack the most dangerous in the game. On defense, brutality still reigned, as Oakland earned its 10th postseason appearance in 11 years. In the first round of the 1977 AFC playoffs, the Raiders played the Colts. The double overtime thriller has since been dubbed the Ghost to the Post, in honor of Dave Casper's game-saving catch in the waning moments of regulation. And in the game's 76th minute, the Hall of Fame tight end finally secured a Raiders victory. For the 5th straight season, the Raiders advanced to the AFC Championship game. That Oakland scored 14 fourth-quarter points is now all but forgotten, thanks to one of the most controversial calls in league history. Trailing 7-3 in the third quarter, the Raiders dug in for a goal line stand. And as they had so many times before, the defense delivered a crushing blow, jarring the ball loose. It was a fumble by any definition, but the officials ruled otherwise. To this day, many Raiders fume about the missed call.
Lytle's fumble? No one saw it, so they said. No one saw the fumble. We're running for a touchdown. We'd have won that game. We'd have gone to the Super Bowl.
The officials ruled that his forward progress was stopped. In that part of it, they were correct. But unfortunately, they couldn't tell in all of those players that the ball came out. The ball came out almost immediately. It was a fumble, and we were wrong on the call.
That admission came a decade too late for the 1977 Raiders. Their reign as world champions had come to an end. But the Raiders' penchant for unusual plays has never abated. And in 1978, Oakland's uncanny ability to improvise provided the NFL with the zaniest finish in its history.
He can't! The ball flipped forward is loose. A wild scramble. 2 seconds on the clock. Casper grabbing the ball. It is ruled a fumble. Casper has recovered in the end zone. The Oakland Raiders have scored on the most zany, unbelievable, absolutely impossible dream of a play. There's nothing real in the world anymore. The Raiders won the football game. The Chargers, they don't believe it. Nobody believes it. It's not real. 52,000 people are stunned. This one will be relived forever.
By 1980, Tom Flores had succeeded John Madden as head coach, and new stars had emerged, like cornerback Lester Hayes, whose 13 interceptions that season still stand as an AFC record. But while Hayes was on his way to stardom, the 2-3 Raiders seemed to be going nowhere.
Pastorini broke his leg against Kansas City. We had gotten off to an awful start that year. We felt our backs were against the wall and we had to try to pull it out.
Entered Jim Plunkett. Despite languishing on the bench for 2 years, his leadership skills were obvious.
He came into the huddle with such poise, with such coolness, and with such confidence that he could do it. And you could feel that, and we did it.
In a remarkable run, the once struggling Raiders earned a playoff berth by winning 9 of 11, with Plunkett regaining his old form each step of the way.
As he got his physical and mental strength back, you could see that there was something special. And our football team could feel it. He had a lot of what Kenny Stabler had, the ability to make other people play better. The ability to get his teammates to be willing to lay their lives down.
He was just nonchalant. He just thought that was the way it should be. We'll just beat him, whatever we have to do. And that's what the great ones have. The great ones have that sense of, we know what we have to do. We'll just go out and do it.
It all starts this week, one game, and one game. All you got to do is win. You lose, you go home.
We're going to the Super Bowl in 1980.
The Raiders celebrated their return to the playoffs by pummeling the Oilers in the first round. A week later in Cleveland,
The weather, it is brutal beyond belief.
the Raiders proved fiercer than even the sub-zero wind chill. Clinging to a 2-point lead late in the fourth quarter, Oakland refused to yield.
The Browns appear to be in the driver's seat. Sipe is going back to pass, wants to take a shot into the end zone. He looks, he throws, and it's a great play that may have been intercepted, and the Cleveland Browns call the chutzpah once too often.
The chutzpah was all Oakland's. A team that had been considered and also ran before the season began was headed to the AFC Championship game. And though no wild card team had ever advanced to the Super Bowl, Oakland was undaunted. Their confidence proved well-founded.
It is all over. The jubilation begins. The Raiders are bound for the Super Bowl for the third time, climaxing one of the great stories in football in recent years, the total resurgence of the silver and black. New Orleans, here come the Raiders.
I can't believe it. It's like a dream come true. It's unbelievable. Yes, and we're going to win.
The Raiders entered Super Bowl 15 on a roll and supremely confident.
To the left against Edwards. Chandler to the right. Plunkett on a straight drop back. Here comes the rush. Steps up. Can't find anybody yet. Takes off running to the left. Rolls on the move. And it's caught by King at the 40. King takes over the 50. He'll go all the way. Nobody knows. To the 20. To the 10. To the 5. Touchdown Raiders. Back is Plunkett. Time to throw. Deep to the end zone to Branch. It is caught by Greenwich. Touchdown Raiders. Holy Toledo.
While Jim Plunkett's 3 touchdown passes earned him MVP honors, Rod Martin earned a place in the record book by intercepting 3 passes.
Sets up really deep. Now comes up the middle. Tipped off. Rod Martin the third time today. And Rod Martin once again slams the door in the face of the man they call Jaws. A sort of fitting symbol. Silver and black football is king of the hill in the National Football League. Jim Plunkett climaxing as great a comeback as sports has ever witnessed.
This was our finest hour. This was the finest hour in the history of the Oakland Raiders. To Tom Flores, the coaches, and the great athletes, you were magnificent out there today. You really are. And take pride and be proud. Your commitment to excellence and your will to win will endure forever. You were magnificent.
In 1982, the Raiders moved to Los Angeles, but the change of venue didn't change the Raiders' philosophy.
That commitment to excellence thing that he coined years and years ago, I see now as corporate mottos, but that meant something. Nobody approached it that way. He approached it like it was a war, like it was us against them, and now everybody says that.
That martial mentality means the Raiders never surrender, no matter how dire the situation. And in 1982, the Silver and Black's uncanny ability to rescue victory from defeat helped them to the league's best record. A week after beating the Chiefs, the Raiders met their new crosstown rivals. But while the Rams held a lead in the game's final minute, they couldn't stop the NFL's Rookie of the Year. Marcus Allen's emergence as the league's most dangerous runner helped the Raiders to the 1982 playoffs. But while he was a breakaway threat, the Raiders weren't breaking from the past. potent and pugnacious, they didn't just have a hair-trigger temper, they were just a hair from reclaiming their title as the most dominant team in the game. And in 1983, they did reclaim it, with abandon, brawn, and brio.
83 was a much different football team than in 1980. We were better in almost every facet of the game. Marcus Allen had joined us in 82, so we had a tremendous running attack with him. Todd Christensen was emerging as a real fine tight end. Our defense with Howie Long and Lyle Alcedo, Greg Townsend, Matt Millen, heading up the linebacker core along with Rod Martin, was just stupendous. We were darn good. You know, we scored on everybody. It was the best team in about the 9-10 years I played with the Raiders that we had.
En route to their 10th AFC West title, the Raiders' high-octane offense was as imaginative as it was unstoppable. And in the first round of the playoffs, a record crowd of more than 90,000 watched the Raiders demolish the Steelers. Beating the Steelers was sweet. Sweeter still was the whipping they gave the Seahawks the following week in the AFC Championship game. The Raiders were headed back to the Super Bowl. Tom Flores' team swaggered in and immediately staggered the defending champion Redskins.
He's going to have the wind at his back. High snap, he goes up, blocked. It's going to be blocked into the end zone. The Raiders on a chase. It'll be recovered in the end zone. It'll be recovered for a Raider touchdown. Lightning has struck wearing black and silver.
The bolts kept coming as the Raiders simply went where they wanted and took what they liked.
Let's keep dominating this team. Let's keep dominating. Keep dominating.
Lead no doubt.
That's right. Let's just abuse them.
Kill him.
Let's abuse them.
The domination was so complete that by halftime the outcome was no longer in doubt.
Theismann back, looks off to the left, and he fires it out there, intercepted, Jack Squirrel, touchdown Raiders! I don't believe it! Holy Toledo!
A screen pass, and they looked like they knew it was coming. Man ran right for it. I guarantee they looked like they knew that play was coming.
You got 30 minutes of Raider football, baby. 30 minutes of Raider football, and it's all ours. No let up. No let up. Let's go.
There was no let up. Instead, Raider football reigned over the Redskins in a maelstrom of muscle and menace. It was a bravura performance, the most one-sided Super Bowl to date, capped by the record-setting performance of Marcus Allen.
Crockett giving to Allen, sending him wide left. He has to reverse his field, but he gets away for a moment. Comes back up to the middle of 30, 25, 40. Right past 2 men of the 50, down to the 40, picking up a blocker, to the 20, to the 10, to the 5. Touchdown Raiders! Holy Toledo!
Allen's 74-yard touchdown run remains the Super Bowl's longest. Few teams have ever won a title more easily, and no team ever enjoyed it more.
With all the great teams we've had, I think today that this organization, this team, this coaching staff dominated so decisively that two things must be said. Not only, in my opinion, are you the greatest Raider team of all time, I think you're ranked with the great teams of all time that have ever played any professional sport.
Are you a football fan at all, Todd?
Oh, huge. Yeah. Huge.
What's your favorite team?
Raiders.
Why is that?
Our first football game I ever went to. When they were in L.A. My dad took me to a Raider game, and I just fell in love with them.
The foundation of the Raiders' mystique is power and intimidation. Relentless and ruthless, these marauders of the gridiron brandish a style of football without mercy. in the 1980s, Howie Long was the driving force behind the Raiders' defense. Whether lined up at tackle or end, it never took long for Howie to find the ball. Appearing in 8 Pro Bowls on his way to the Hall of Fame, Howie Long's passion was inspiring. Equally moving was the playmaking ability of Mike Haynes. Haynes had the speed to defend the pass and the toughness to stop the run. One of the best cornerbacks in NFL history, Haynes displayed his Hall of Fame skills with this 97-yard interception return in a memorable 1984 matchup against the Dolphins. Haynes' touchdown was one of the few defensive highlights in a game that featured nearly 1,000 yards of total offense. 75 of them coming on Mark Wilson's touchdown strike to wide receiver Dokie Williams. The Raiders were also explosive on the ground, with running back Marcus Allen finding his way into the end zone. Allen cruised to 3 touchdowns in the Raiders' 45-34 victory. For 11 seasons, Marcus Allen wore the silver and black and established himself as one of football's greatest running backs. The Raiders' all-time leader in both rushing yards and touchdowns, Allen was elusive in the open field and unstoppable at the goal line. The master of the touchdown plunge, Allen was fearless from inside the 5-yard line.
I know how important it is to get in there, and to me it doesn't matter how it's done. There's never going to be an asterisk that says it was done in a very, beautiful way or an artistic way. It was just, it's going to say touchdown.
Allen's determination made him the 1985 NFL MVP and the first player to record over 10,000 yards rushing and 5,000 yards receiving.
I've always had a tremendous desire not to be an average player, to stand out from the crowd. And I think I've done everything that I possibly can to see that has happened.
Joining Allen in the Raider backfield in 1987 was one of pro sports' most remarkable athletes, Bo Jackson. Jackson made an immediate impact, earning Rookie of the Year honors and rushing for 221 yards and 3 touchdowns in a highly publicized Monday night showdown against Brian Bosworth and the Seattle Seahawks.
Quick pitch to Jackson, getting an Allen block, cuts under it, bangs through Bosworth, touchdown Raiders!
I have people tell me all the time that they've never seen a running back your size with the speed that you had. And it never fazed me because I've been doing it all my life, running.
The first ever to play in both the NFL Pro Bowl and Major League Baseball's All-Star Game, Jackson was the ultimate 2-sport athlete.
Bo Jackson had to be one of the great athletes of all time that could go in and play 2 major league sports and play them well.
Bo Jackson could get off the bus and run 90 yards in a game and act like he had just gone out in the park to play baseball. That's how good an athlete he was.
With uncanny breakaway speed, Bo Jackson is the only ball carrier in NFL history to have 2 runs from scrimmage of over 90 yards. Factor in Jackson's brute strength, and it becomes no surprise that he was one of the hardest players to tackle. His 5.4 average yards per carry is a Raiders all-time record. But ironically, his thirst for confrontation might have been both his greatest attribute and his final downfall. What appeared to be a routine running play against the Bengals turned into a tragic end of a career far too short.
You sit around and say, well, if I had just stepped out of bounds there and instead of trying to get that extra yard, it wouldn't have happened. But I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason. Life goes on. I don't think any professional athlete will start to live until he's out of sports and spending time with his family.
Having left football with no regrets, Bo Jackson's time with the Raiders was brief, but his impression will be everlasting. In 1989, after an NFL career that spanned 3 decades, Art Shell was hired by owner Al Davis as head coach, a decision based solely on his football acumen, and that alone.
He said, but I want you to know one thing. I'm not hiring you because you're black. You are a Raider. And that's very important to me. You are a Raider.
He was a Raider, and he knew the system, and he played the system, and he had led the team as a Raider. That's the way it should be.
The first black head coach of the modern era, Art Shell increased the diversity of the NFL and put the Raiders on top of the AFC West.
But the one thing that you've done all year long, you've hung in there for 60 damn minutes and you got it done some kind of way. And now we're 12-4. We're AFC division champions.
With his team primed and prepared, Coach Shell led the Raiders into the 1990 postseason against the Bengals.
Here's Tim Brown in motion to the right. It's third down. Back to pass. Raiders steps up. Rifles one. Fernandez. Touchdown Raiders!
The defense held Cincinnati to 1 touchdown, while quarterback Jay Schrader picked apart the Bengals secondary for a convincing win.
15, 10, 5, touchdown Raiders!
Thrilling comebacks have always been a part of Raiders history, including a 1988 Monday night matchup that had the Silver and Black down 24-0 to the Denver Broncos.
Inside handoff to Allen. He races for the end zone. Touchdown Raiders!
The Raiders forced the game into overtime, tied at 27, where the defense shut down quarterback John Elway, putting kicker Chris Barr in position for the win.
Snap, spot, kick. Raiders win!
The Raiders proved themselves the kings of prime time, compiling the best winning percentage in Monday Night Football history.
One thing you got to understand is the only way to play this game is you got to get down in the dirt and get nasty. Let's go.
In 1993, the Raiders continued to stick it to the Broncos. To qualify for the playoffs, they overcame a 17-point deficit in the last week of the season.
Touchdown Raiders! It's Alexander Wright! They've tied it up with a final play in regulation! The snap is back, it's down, it's up, it's on its way, it's long enough. It's good! The Raiders go to the playoffs! The Raiders go to the playoffs!
You won the game because you deserved to win it. Now listen up. That's a good football team over there we beat today. A very good football team. And we got them again next week. Right here, okay?
Yes.
7 days later, the Raiders again proved their dominance over the Broncos.
Hostetler sets up. He's got all day. Guns it over the middle. 2 are there. Brown's got it at the 40. There he goes to the 30. He'll take it the distance. Touchdown Raiders!
Denver was defeated by the Raiders for the 3rd time during the 1993 season, though the playoff win would be the last for the Raiders in the city of Los Angeles. In 1995, the Silver and Black would return to Oakland, where the storied franchise began 35 years earlier. After enduring a series of forgettable seasons in the mid-1990s, the glory of the Raiders was about to return, just in time for the new millennium.
There's a block. Marquise Walker blocked it, and the Raiders have the ball. Kenny Shedd picks it up, and he goes into the end zone. Touchdown. They give it to Wheatley up the middle. He's into the end zone, untouched on the right side. Touchdown, Raiders!
Leading the Raiders into their new era was head coach John Gruden. Hired at the age of 34, Gruden was young by NFL standards, but his passion and toughness were strictly old school.
How about something here? Get something going! Get after their ass!
We're not posing for football cards now, offense. We're not posing for football cards. Let's play with some speed.
Ready to...
Gruden's motivation raised the Raiders' expectations and reinvigorated Oakland's will to win.
Come on, get all you can get. Compete for inches. The effort was outstanding. Hey, I'm so proud of you guys. I'm so happy for you. Let's all start a chant here. Raiders! 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 I love it, man. You love football, don't you, John?
A Raider with the same love for football is Rich Gannon. a journeyman quarterback who finally found a home in Oakland.
All I ever wanted was a coach to believe in me, to give me an opportunity to start week one and to see what I could do with the football team through the course of the season. And fortunately for me, and it's taken a while, but I found that guy in John Gruden and the Oakland Raiders.
Rolling right again, same play, Brown covered.
He signed with the Raiders, and I let him know right away, I'm going to go down with you, or we're going to fly high together. And, you know, he's one of the great competitors that maybe I'll ever have a chance to be around.
In 1999, Rich Gannon was among the best quarterbacks in the NFL. By 2000, the Raiders had their first AFC West title in a decade, and Gannon was commanding the team's high-powered offense into the postseason.
To the end zone, touchdown, Raiders! 26-0 Raiders.
You accomplished something today that not a lot of teams get to taste. And you better like the taste, guys. You better like the taste.
The Raiders tasted success in the playoffs again in 2001. The addition of one of football's all-time greatest players, Jerry Rice, enhanced an already overwhelming offensive attack.
Pitch it wide. Here's a play to Garner, and he's got the first down. He's going to go all the way for a touchdown. Touchdown! Charlie Garner. What a play. 80 yards to win the game. The Raiders are going to New England.
In a division playoff game against the Patriots, the Raiders' offense maintained its precision despite the impossible conditions.
Throwing for the end zone, and it's caught by James Jett. Touchdown, Raiders!
But the play of the game came courtesy of the defense.
Here he is, bearing down on Brady, calls the fumble. Beaker dives on the ball. The Raiders have the ball. Charles Woodson came on a corner blitz, and he rocked his former Michigan teammate, Greg Beaker. Dives on it.
The play is going to be reviewed, though, Greg.
Why? He does bring it forward, but that's not to pass the ball.
He pumped it. He was pulling the ball back.
Ruled an incomplete pass and not a fumble, the controversial call led to a Patriots field goal that sent the game into overtime. New England won the game, but the bitter defeat brought sweet revenge in 2002.
Brady drops 5 steps, now pressured, fumbles the ball. It's free, the Raiders got it, and this time the Brady fumble will stand.
Fueled by determination, the Raiders unloaded their arsenal. Against the Steelers, Rich Gannon connected with his receivers 43 times to set an NFL record for the most completions in a regulation game.
Catchman, touchdown, Raiders!
In 2002, Gannon was named the league's most valuable player for guiding the NFL's top-rated offense. By season's end, he'd completed a record-breaking 418 passes, with a good share of them going to number 81, Tim Brown. The Raiders have always had a tradition of outstanding receivers. In 1986, tight end Todd Christensen led the NFL in receptions. With 5 straight Pro Bowl appearances, Christensen was one of the premier tight ends of the 1980s. In the early 90s, receivers like Willie Gault and James Jett used their world-class speed to turn football games into Olympic time trials.
Throwing on first down, the pocket holds up, slings it over the middle, has James Jett, complete to the 50, there he goes, to the 40, down to the 30, nobody will catch James Jett, put a gold medal around his neck.
Still, the Raider receiver who stands out most is Tim Brown. Number 81 holds the Raiders' all-time records for catches, receiving yards, touchdowns, and all-purpose yards.
And throws for Brown, it is caught for a touchdown!
Back to throw, firing in the end zone for Brown, touchdown Raiders!
Loops one left, wide open, Brown, touchdown, Raiders!
Second only to teammate Jerry Rice in all-time receiving yards, Tim Brown's dedication and consistency has made him a Raider legend.
Tim Brown with career catch number 1,000, all in the silver and black of the Raiders.
By the end of the 2002 season, it was clear that the Raiders would be soaring into the playoffs.
As he loops one for Garner, got him, touchdown!
The Raiders unleashed their wrath and clinched their third straight division title.
The Raiders have won the AFC West again.
Maintaining their intensity, the Raiders looked to keep the Jets grounded. While the Jets had a hard time leaving the runway, the Raiders were already in afterburn.
Again, pump fake. Now going to loop one left for quarter. Who's open? Got it! Touchdown! Raiders!
Rich Gannon's pass to Jerry Porter put Oakland in the lead, with no intention of letting up.
Double wing left. Run pass. 98 Willie. Zebra quick post. It's our ball or nobody's.
End zone wide open, Jerry Rice. Touchdown, Raiders!
Jerry Rice became the NFL's all-time leader in playoff yardage. Up next was a clash against the Titans, with a trip to the Super Bowl at stake.
West right zoom, 22 scat smash Zebra option to 74 Eagle.
Competing in an NFL record 14th conference championship, the Raiders played with their trademark poise.
Shovel over the middle of Gardner 5. Gardner to the end zone. Touchdown Raiders.
With their dominance over the Titans, the Raiders' return to glory had been fulfilled, and the fans of the Raider Nation anticipated their first Super Bowl in almost 20 years.
Gannon looks left, nobody open. He can run for the end zone. Here he goes, Gannon into the end zone. Touchdown, Raiders! The Oakland Raiders have won the American Football Conference in 2003. The two-decade drought is over, America. The silver and black are back in the Super Bowl.
The only team to play in Super Bowls in 4 different decades, the 3-time world champion Oakland Raiders were prepared to claim another Lombardi trophy.
Snap, they go for a block, and they get it up in the air. They block the punt, and out of the air they take it away, and it's a touchdown for Eric Crazy Johnson. Touchdown, Raiders!
The Raiders played valiantly in Super Bowl 37, but in the end, it was not enough. However, the loss to the Buccaneers is only a small blemish on a proud legacy. With the support of the Raiderettes, football's fabulous females, Oakland has one of the strongest and most unique fan followings in the NFL.
Hello, friends! Good to see you out here. We are Metallica, and we are here for your Oakland Raiders!
You know why we're out here, and we ain't playing around today.
From The Walking Dead to errant Jedi Knights, Raiders fans are a rogues gallery.
Tired of this place. It's like a field trip to San Quentin.
Silver and black Raider Nation, welcome to Oaktown, baby. You're going down, Miami.
Feels like the Gladiator the movie out here, man. These fans are wild.
This is about a new glory, a new mystique. Raider football in its finest. We don't quit. We don't die. We just inflict pain.
Collectively known as the Black Hole, these loyal fans generate a raucous enthusiasm that pervades the stadium, helping make good players great.
Yeah, baby! Yeah!
16 members of the Raiders organization have earned the NFL's highest honor, enshrinement in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. From the sure hands of great receivers like Fred Biletnikoff and Dave Casper, to the rugged toughness of George Blanda and Ted Hendricks, the pride of suiting up in the silver and black is the common bond of Raider excellence.
Gives it to Allen, racing to the 10, the 5, touchdown Raiders!
I am extremely proud to have been a Raider. I'm also proud to have played my entire career with the Raiders.
Whether it was for just a few seasons or an entire career, once a Raider, forever a Raider. It's an axiom that applies to all members of the Silver and Black, whether they are in the Hall of Fame or on their way there.
Rod Woodson, an 83-yard return.
Listen up, man. I got one game ball. This unbelievable guy now. This man is 39 years old. He's really 29 years old. Sure, Jerry Rice said. Jerry Rice.
Since Al Davis first pledged to build the finest organization in pro sports, the Raiders have had a profound impact on the landscape of professional football.
There can only be one. You hear me? There can only be one.
The Oakland Raiders have won 4 in a row and are the hottest team in the AFC.
Theirs is a tradition of equity, innovation, and achievement. A cycle of success set in motion in 1963, which continues to this day.
Raiders! Touchdown, Tim Brown, rolling into the end zone.
Best kept secret in the NFL, Raiders.
And what we strongly believe, that the fire that burns brightest here is the will to win, but the greatness of the Raider is in its future, is in its present group, so that they can carry that message and carry that torch and carry that banner into the future.
This NFL Films production has been brought to you by the National Football League. The NFL is online at www.nfl